Hello and welcome to the Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today we're looking at the 2015 series Age of Ultron vs. Marvel Zombies. I said it right this time! Yay for me! Ultron first appeared back in 1968, in a story arc where an at-first unnamed robot wanted to destroy the Avengers for reasons unknown. Ultron's hatred for the Avengers was so strong that he even created a new robot man, the Vision, just to help him destroy the heroes. But like with Wonder Man, whose memories and brainwaves Ultron had stolen to create the Vision and give the Synthesoid Man his autonomy, the Vision would start out as an enemy of the Avengers and then become their ally. Ultron himself would be revealed to be a creation of Hank Pym, aka Giant Man, aka Ant-Man, aka Goliath. I think that was it by that point. Pym was attempting to create artificial intelligence. That intelligence would surprise Pym with how quickly it became self-aware, and it would immediately turn its rage against its creator and try to destroy him. Despite seemingly being destroyed by the Avengers in its first appearance, Ultron would come back again and again to plague them, eventually leading up to the 2013 story, Age of Ultron. In that story, an Ultron attacked the Avengers of the present from a future where it had conquered the Earth, until Wolverine managed to stop the entire thing from happening thanks to some convenient time traveling. But like with many alternate universes, erased timelines, and major events, the Age of Ultron may have been gone, but it wasn't forgotten. And a portion of Ultron's version of Earth was among the bits of universes brought together for Doom's Battleworld in the 2015 Secret Wars event story. The Age of Ultron district, called Perfection, would be among the regions blocked off from the rest of Battleworld by the Shield, as one of the regions considered too dangerous for the rest of the planet. That would make Perfection into a neighboring district of the Deadlands, home of the Secret Wars version of the Marvel Zombies, who by this point we've seen a million different videos about on my channel. Seriously, you could go watch them all. It's a lot, but do it. Oh, wait. Okay, you did it? Alright, cool. Part of the intention in making these two extremely dangerous groups neighbors may well have been to have an eventual showdown between them. So just what does happen when zombies and robots clash? Let's find out and take this away. The comic opens on Tigra, former West Coast Avenger, now just another lost soul abandoned into the Badlands beyond the Shield. Those who commit the greatest of crimes against God Emperor Doom are punished by either being sent to work the Shield, or across it to be consumed by the zombies, or killed by Ultron or the annihilation wave of Annihilus. Tigra's crime was apparently to attempt the overthrow of one of the barons of one of the provinces, and now she's running for her life, attempting to escape the zombies. Which she's doing a pretty good job of, honestly, but they do finally manage to surround her. Only right then, the Ultrons show up, and it's a full-on zombie versus robot matchup! Aw yeah! That's what the people paid for! And it's also about all that we're getting of that. Sorry fam. We cut straight from this opening volley to the history of Ultron in this timeline. It deviates from established timeline almost immediately, with this Ultron 1 choosing to kill Hank Pym while it had the chance, instead of just knocking him out so that it could prove its superiority against the entirety of the Avengers later. Then, when Ultron formed a new Masters of Evil to attack the Avengers with, it had the original villainous Black Knight, instead of the Dane Whitman version that betrayed the team to the Avengers. Without Whitman, the Masters of Evil succeeded and the Avengers were killed. Ultron then had the freedom to grow, building an army of copies of itself that would eventually eliminate all human heroes before finally creating the perfect robot utopia. Having achieved its goals of taking over Earth, Ultron stands prepared to take over Battleworld. Believing its dominance over living things means that nothing and no one can stand in its way. No one, except maybe its creator, Hank Pym. Of course, this isn't your standard edition Hank Pym. This is the Hank Pym from the town of Timely in the Valley of Doom. Timely gets its own comic, as do all the provinces of Battleworld, with its comic titled 1872 because its setting is the Wild West. The old-timey vibe of Timely is largely reference, of course, because Timely Comics is what Marvel Comics was originally called when it first started as a company. This timely version of Hank Pym is at the Shield, meeting with Michael Morbius of a District Unknown and the Janet Van Dyne from Timely. This Janet and Hank, unsurprisingly, were once a couple, but they eventually broke up as the couple so often does in other universes, and their time after separating has apparently led them both to the Shield. Janet is working the Shield as an agent of the Wall as her punishment, and Pym is being sent across it for his own crimes. The comic waits most of its 4-issue run to tell you why they both ended up here, but that feels more like a pacing decision to me than anything else. There's no real mystery or surprise to it, so I'll just go ahead and get into it now. Janet was once a dancer at a saloon in Timely where she met Hank, an inventor who had come to town to set up shop, and who was independently wealthy enough to spend his time tinkering with his inventions. His main focus was on a clockwork man, something he intended to be a fully autonomous robot, if he could just get it working. Hank spent so much time working on his shiny metal robot that Janet came to the conclusion that he loved it more than he loved her, and so she moved on with her life. Men, they do be getting too busy with their shiny metal robots. You know what I mean? Janet then joined some revolutionaries attempting to overthrow the Baron of the Valley of Doom, a group where the members aren't named, but judging from their looks, I'm guessing they're supposed to be the Ringmaster, Namor, Jack of Hearts, and Madame Mask. The group taught her to fight, but again, God Emperor Doom doesn't take kindly to attempts at overthrowing barons, and so Janet ended up being captured by Doom's personal police force, the Thors, and sent to make penance at the Shield. Sorry, I think the old-timey talk is getting to my vocabulary. For Pym's part, he honestly doesn't do much. With Janet gone, he simply continues working on his clockwork man. He eventually decides he wants to make the robot more durable, and to do that, he needs a tougher metal than he has available. So he makes a deal with a shady character to obtain some adamantium, which the shady character clearly gets from Wolverine's skeleton. Well, a Wolverine skeleton. We're not really shown which one. Probably not the one we saw in Timely when Hank and Janet met, since the crime isn't so much the obtaining the adamantium as it is smuggling it across borders. That's something Doom likes even less than overthrowing barons apparently, so rather than just being sent to defend the wall, Pym is being sent across it to die at the hands of the monsters on the other side. Since Janet is the one sending him across though, for old time's sake, she pulled some strings to let Hank pick where he is being sent across the wall. And of course, he picks perfection, because of course he does. I mean, to be fair, I'd probably pick that too. I find it funny though that Mr. My First Love is Robots is dropped off by a sentinel to go see robots, but is in no way impressed or amazed by the giant flying robot that brings him there. What do you think that sentinel is, Hank? Also, having sentinels protect human beings from robots seems like you're just asking for trouble, but I digress. Hank's hope is to see the idyllic city of robots before he dies, but he instead seems to come across the remainders of that opening battle, the only survivors of which are apparently these two zombies. And they don't last too much longer either. They get blasted away before they can eat their human prey by an unlikely trio of rescuers. We got the Vision, the original Human Torch Jim Hammond, and Simon Williams, better known as Wonder Man. So, really, just the Vision times 3, I guess. For those unfamiliar with Jim Hammond, he was actually Marvel's very first superhero, from the very first story in Marvel Comics #1, which was the very first comic book published by the company Timely Comics. That's a lot of firsts. Yeah. While he was called the Human Torch, the Humanoid Torch might be more accurate, since he was an android, not a man, a robot man created by a human scientist. Eventually, the Vision would be said to have been created out of Hammond's body, in just the same way that Vision's mind, as I mentioned earlier, came from the recordings of Wonder Man's mind. That story is kept here, more or less, with Wonder Man and Human Torch both being from Ultron's Earth. Ultron captured them both and used them to create the Vision. intending Viz as a backup plan should his initial attack on the superheroes of Earth fail, which I'm guessing would have led to a timeline more like that of the 616. Since his attack didn't fail, Ultron kept the three sort of men as basically pets. But sickened by the death and devastation that Ultron wrought on his world, they eventually rebelled and escaped, heading out into the wastelands where they formed the city of giant soccer balls that they call Salvation. From there, they rescued other refugees exiled beyond the wall and provide them with a home and protection from attack. That protection isn't just the city itself and the superheroes leading it, but also from a force-filled dome that surrounds the city made out of ionic energy siphoned off of Wonder Man, who is a being composed purely of that energy. But even the dome can't protect them forever, and the survivors of Salvation know that the only way to stave off Ultron permanently is to stop him completely, which is why they need Hank Pym. Of course, their Hank Pym is dead, but they're willing to settle for any Hank Pym, even one from a world more than 100 years technologically behind the creation of Ultron. So they take Timely Hank and set him to work reading all the notes they've managed to recover from their world's Hank, hoping he can find some way to stop his dupe's creation. While Hank is convinced learning what they need will take forever, the others are convinced that he'll have enough time, just so long as the zombies and Ultron bots keep fighting each other. So smash cut to the Ultrons and zombies forming an alliance. You just had to say it, didn't you, Hammond? Look what you've done. This is your fault. I love that it's a zombie Magneto making the deal, one of the only characters we haven't seen yet as a zombie, but the first character we ever saw in a Marvel Zombies comic. Nice touch. Ultron has a plan for their forces to work together, convinced it's the only way for them to be too powerful for the living to stop them, thus allowing them to conquer all of Battleworld, taking one half of the planet each. While we wait for all these plot threads to tie together, we spend some time getting to see our heroes' lives inside Salvation. All three of the founding trio have found love under the dome. Vision has partnered up with Agatha Harkness, and I find the idea amusing that in the absence of Wanda, Viz ends up with Wanda's former teacher. Dude's consistent if nothing else. Wonder Man is dating a character named Iron Cross, and Jim Hammond is with a woman named Radiance. Both of these women debuted in the Invaders title that spun out of the original Sins event, a title that was written and drawn by the same creative team as this title, James Robinson and Steve Pugh, respectively, and so could probably be seen as basically the precursor to this title. Radiance, or Ryoko, is even pregnant with Jim Hammond's child, a surprising and in some ways terrifying event considering what's coming for them. But Ryoko is convinced everything will be alright, as it has been since the two first met, a meeting that occurred while battling some zombie apes. Which is probably a nice little tip of the hat to the Marvel Zombies Evil Evolution story that was a crossover with the Marvel Apes universe, even though these are just apes controlled by the Red Ghost. At this point, we finally learn what Ultron's plan was, and apparently it was to combine the Ultrons together with the zombies into Ultra Zombies. Zombitrons. Utroms. Wait, no, that last one's probably taken. You get the idea. I'm not really clear on how this is supposed to be better than the two joining forces individually, but I do think they look hilarious, so I'm glad we get them whatever the case. Somehow this combination does allow them to attack the ionic field with renewed fervor, and the force field is unable to stand up to their efforts and begins to break. Luckily, just this same moment, Hank has figured out a way to defeat Ultron, and even better, this will allow them to defeat the zombies at the same time. His means of defeating the Ultron bots is to introduce a new hive mind that is more powerful than Ultron Prime. And doing that means linking the minds of all three of the founders together, causing them to lose their own sense of self as they become truly one. Being the heroes that they are, they agree to do it without hesitation, so Hank runs off to reconfigure the ionic field from suck to blow. From defend to broadcast. Yeah. This lets the zombies into the city, and everyone there works to fend them off for as long as possible, giving us a brief little splurge of various cameos. But it's not enough, and the zombie wrecker breaks into Hank's lab to try and stop him. Fortunately, he's saved by Janet Van Dyne! Damn it, Janet, what are you doing here? After dropping Pym off at his destination, Miss Van Dyne couldn't stop wondering about his fate, so she had the same Sentinel drop her off at the same location, and then set about tracing his path, fighting her own way across the Deadlands and armies of zombies to arrive, untouched, in Salvation just at the nick of time. This gives Hank the chance he needs to start his plan, activating the Ionic Energy broadcast beam. Hammond, Vision, and Wonder Man all head toward the light, but Iron Cross shows up and throws Hammond back to his baby's mama, claiming that Hank fixed it so that Iron Cross can take his place and be with Wonder Man forever in their Ionic Energy field. I'm glad for her, I guess. We didn't really get to know her. And with that, with them all in the light, Hank's plan works. The field washes over the invading force, and Ultron and his Ultron zombies have their minds overridden. Instead of being attackers, they become the new defense force for Salvation, a barrier called the Everguard that watches over the city forever. Bet it smells horrible though. With that threat taken care of, Janet and Hank begin looking forward to a chance to get back together, and Jim and Ryoko get to look forward to raising their child together. And we get to look forward to the breakdown. This feels like a pretty uneventful comic to me. You could say that with 4 issues, there's not a whole lot that you can get done, but counterpoint, the other Battleworld Marvel Zombies comic I feel did a ton with its 4 issues and did it beautifully. This entire story feels like a prequel, like a setup for another story to come, only that story never does come. This is it. This is everything. It is like the other Battleworld Zombies comic in that this essentially fails to deliver on its promise. This isn't really an Age of Ultron or Marvel Zombies comic, and it's definitely not Age of Ultron versus Marvel Zombies. Those enemies are here, but this is basically the story of the Hank Pym of Timely, that ends up involving creatures and robots he never could have dreamed of, but finds a way to defeat regardless. For what it's worth, that story isn't really bad. I, for one, always enjoy getting to see familiar characters and stories get played around with to create new perspectives, but I wish they had done more of that here. I also feel it's super weird that the comic built itself around the creation of Hank's Clockwork Man, almost like there was some mystery or suspense to it, a Chekhov's robot, if you will. And yet, that ended up never going anywhere. The Clockwork Man really was not important at all, except as a means of breaking Hank and Janet up. And speaking of Janet, it also seemed like she was going to play a more important role, only to end up being extraordinarily sidelined. We watched for like 3 issues as she tried to cross the Deadlands to get to Hank, only to show up and shoot 1 zombie, and that was it. I guess it doesn't make sense to expect more from a universe that was going to only last for 4 months anyway, and to be honest, as far as bizarre alternate universe stories that are intended to only pass time during the course of a major event story go, I still feel that every Battleworld story I've read, yes including this one, is better than the vast majority of Flashpoint stories, so, you know, good on this, I guess? So I'm giving this series a recommendation level of low. I'm not really sure who would be interested in this series beyond someone just wanting to read all of the Secret Wars tie-ins, or if you're just really a huge Age of Ultron fan, but for those people, they're at least not getting a bad comic. The collected edition gets 1 soccer ball shaped habitat, which is not great, but not bad. I'm not sure it's the most efficient way to live, and I understand it might stink real bad outside. The comic comes with the 4 issues, about 3 alternate covers interspersed across the collection instead of collected in a gallery at the back, which is fine, and the entire first issue of Age of Ultron, which, since it's written by Bendis, isn't a very long read. But hey, a bonus is a bonus. Thanks everybody for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. We're done with zombies for this spooky season, but there should be one more Halloween appropriate video coming for ya. So I hope you're excited about that. So if you did enjoy this video, or you're just excited about what's coming, or you feel your mind being taken over by a new hive mind, then be sure to click the like and subscribe and all those YouTube things so you can help the channel out, and so you can help yourself to be here next time, and I hope to see you then, right here, in the Comic Cave.